Live from the historic Ham Building in St. Paul, it's the Haberdasher's Couch. I'm Kendrick, inviting you to the show, starring Heimie and Ross, featuring Todd Walker, also featuring Amy Charlo. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Heimie.
Welcome to another show of the Haberdasher's Couch. You don't have to pay somebody to listen to you. I am so fortunate to have Ross Fruen here with me today, who wrote The Boys of the Brule. The book reads like a river that ebbs and flows from the banks to the banks, and that's really kind of how history is. And Ross has a long family history, 7 generations.
Yeah.
That date back to late to
1880s, I guess.
1880s.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandfather, right, over 100 years of being in the garment business.
Right.
And then your great grandfather, I understand, was in the water business.
Yes. Yes, he was. He was a man who kind of made his own luck, but he was always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, and he was digging a hole along Bassett's Creek, and he hit a spring, and it turned into the Glenwood Inglewood Water Company.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And so you had good water growing up. So Ross, you grew up in Minneapolis.
Yes.
But you retreated to the banks of the Brule.
Yes.
Yes. And it almost feels like there was a pull. From the beginning of the book to the end of the book, there was a pull in a sense that you needed to get up there. That not only did you need to get up there, but the people from the other camps needed to get up there and commune. Which I think is a wonderful thing, because in one of these passages we talk a little bit about how the significance of place.
Yes.
Yeah, and the significance of place, you know, because I have a reverence for the North Shore.
Yes.
And I know what it's like to build that into self. Can you give me a little bit of a picture of that significant of place?
Yes. When we hopefully think back with our memories on pleasant memories with a family, and we grew up hanging out together, so cousins, second cousins, and so yes, the pull is almost indescribable as far as the roots go, but it's important. And I think it was Gertrude Stein who went back to her home in Oakland after many, many, many years, and it was totally different. She said, "There's no there anymore."
Right.
So that is the other side of the place coin.
Right. You know, what's interesting, because what you say here is, a place is not a place until people have been born in it, have grown up in it, lived in it, known it, and died in it. Wow. And what I find interesting and fascinating about the book is that it bumps off of history. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I get the sense that your reflection is based on time and place in history. And we could actually reflect on the Ojibwe, which you really give a great insight into the life and actually the movement of people throughout this river valley, 44-mile river valley, right, extending all the way down to the Mississippi and then the Gulf of Mexico.
Eventually, yes.
But tell me, how did you find that connection between Ojibwe or Anishinaabe, right, and their role that they played alongside the development of that river and the finding of that river?
Yes, it was. There was a lot of interaction when the Anglos first came to the valley, and the Ojibwe had pushed the Dakota west to Minnesota.
Right.
But we did have interaction with many of the Ojibwe and the Métis, which is a combination of French and Ojibwe.
Right.
And so we knew Ojibwe guides on the river that would take you up and down. We knew some that would cook for us, and so it was sort of what they called the middle ground was sort of coming back a little bit, but the middle ground was when the Anglos and the Dakota and the Ojibwe met together, and they were interwoven trading-wise. They traded, and so it was a mishmash of that. But
two cultures coming together.
Two cultures coming together, middle ground, and so we were sort of at the very tail end of that.
So it's interesting. And actually, your grandfather, decided that he chose family over
his judicial career.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And so that his goal was to get there, to be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and the relationships from Milwaukee, where my great-grandfather and his buddies would take the train up there in the very beginning, and it took, I think, 3 days to get there from Milwaukee. They took the train up to Bayfield, which was sort of a center at the time, and then they would take a tugboat across part of Superior, and then they would take horse and wagon to the river. So it took 3 days to get there.
Isn't that another book? I couldn't happen but to reference Lewis and Clark.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, in your research, was there any influence there in writing your book that was found in the Lewis and Clark expedition?
Only insofar as the push west was unstoppable and mostly fueled by the railroads. Right. But yes.
And we were looking for a way to come south through Canada, Minnesota, the south shore of Lake Superior, down into the Mississippi.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing that it goes that deep? And as you do more research, you find more things. That's
the exciting part. I mean, the research can be tedious, but when you hit something, it's exciting.
You find a piece that you can relate to.
Right, and a lot of it is, what I like to do is have it be story-driven, because, you know, people have plumbed the history of the area before, but they don't have the stories that I do.
Right. I mean, I think that's what we write what we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to speak, and so...
and the reader can tell when it's not false, but
there's stretching. Well, I mean, I think that your personal reflections are what makes this book so sweet too. You know, it's about family, it's about place, it's about friends. You know, one of the things that people probably don't realize, that I didn't realize when I first picked up the book, there wasn't a lot of trout in that river up until a certain point because of the tributaries were blocked. Huh?
Yes, it was. There was a lot of beaver dams, and it blocked all the spawning beds, and so it really wasn't until the Native Americans came through that, and they used that as a trading route and a road to war, even. And, so you're right. It was plugged up a little bit.
I like this: fish, frogs, and waterfowl in our day at least be only inhabitants, in the prevalence of venomous insects.
Yes.
And gigantic mosquitoes.
Yes.
You know, people think, wow, paradise.
Yes.
There was some struggle. So then we had the St. Paul Club, the 𝐤𝐸 Club, and the Winnebago Club, and then the Noise Camp.
The Noise Camp.
Noise Camp.
Yes. Those were there were four original friends that came up there, and they camped, and then when the land was purchased, they had to move, so they moved upriver a little bit, and one of the gentlemen dropped out because I believe he was a bachelor and he was a reverend, he had no children, so he saw the generations building and said, I'm getting out of here. There's too many noisy kids. But so the three other are still ensconced on the river right next to each other.
And they're not still paying the price of a 9-inch trout to rent the property?
You know, I think that has fallen, that is a tradition that has fallen by the way.
You could resurrect it.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most important things that, and a lot of times we don't get a chance to talk about, is the male bonding aspect of this. It seems like in your book you say that men are event driven.
Yes.
Like we gather through events. Where women they have a tendency to want to talk about things, to be together and talk about things. Where guys are like, let's get together, let's do some fishing, and that's our togetherness.
Well, I call it women interact face to face,
right?
And men interact shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that the younger generations we're having a hard time connecting. Today, even though we have access to connect more, like text messaging, emails, cell phones, it seems like we're further away from that humanity than we are closer to it.
Yes, and my I have friends from the day I was born. Our mothers went to first grade together, and we went to first grade together, and so we have a lot of friends that have stayed in touch, and this is our meeting place once a year. So
your friends, 35 years. Sort of
every May.
Every May you come together.
Yes.
Yep. So and what I want to just end with is the fact that Ross he worked on growing up in Minnesota and Minnetonka. This was your experience growing up on the shores of Lake Minnetonka, or
not really.
It's a house, a cabin, or a house.
Yes. The interesting part to me is that we lived in Southwest Minneapolis, and we could get up in the morning and have breakfast, and 40 minutes we would be on an island in a cabin on Lake Minnetonka, and so I could be a cabin kid in the afternoon. And I always said that I'd come back and go to sleep at night listening to the final descent of the jets into Will Chamberlain Field, and it was my Southwest Minneapolis lullaby. So we went sort of from a little bit of nature to big city stuff, and and to us too, it was a great time to grow up in our part of Minneapolis. There were some other, certainly every big city has issues, but so we started going downtown Minneapolis on the bus, on the city bus, and we would meet, and we had a routine. We would meet at Herman's Lunch on 9th Street in downtown Minneapolis, and have a quarter hamburger and play the Ask the Swami game for a penny. That the only answers they'd give were yes or no. So it was, it wasn't great, but we liked it. And then we'd go to Rifle Sports, which was this big arcade place, and we would go downstairs to the bowling alley right next door to the Rand Hotel, which was pretty much populated by indigent people, and so it was great. It was great to be able to, we behaved ourselves and we didn't cause any trouble, and it was just walking down.
So that's all in this book. Reflections. So what we can do is, I would say, you can order this from our website. And I really enjoyed again the read, and I enjoyed the context in which the history was placed and your family history was placed, because I reflect on that myself. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. I have you come on again, because I'll read the other book. And like I said, this is probably many discussions.
Next time, I'll be back in March.
Oh, perfect. All right.
But that puts a deadline. You better get on that.
Get on it right away. Thanks for joining us today, Ross. Thanks for coming in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.